30 seconds and counting. Astronaut report, it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, Bills Mafia? Wednesday night. You already know what that means, baby. It's the smoke break. Live with you here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. And finally, we got a lot to talk about because football is back, baby. Bills take the field today to open up training camp, and you can smell it in the air, can't you, Bills Mafia? It's right around the corner. A little over 2 weeks away from the first preseason game. And this is the time of the year when you really start to feel it. I'm getting goosebumps right now. You can't see it. I don't have an 8K camera. But if I did, you could see the goosebumps on my arms right now as I even put into the atmosphere the fact that football is essentially back and the season is right around the corner. So much to unpack in this one. We're going to dive right into it. Before we do, giving a shout out to my loyal viewers, as always, James FX90. What is up, James? Good to have you in. Colin, what's happening? Why? Richard, Rush, David, everybody else, Sheldon, we got in here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Travis, what's happening, my man? Give me your comments throughout the show as to what you thought of opening day of training camp. There's a lot to talk about. I think the best part of what we were able to experience today is finally getting press conferences from the players. We have yet to have this in quite some time, especially in-person pressers. We haven't had that in what seems like forever, since basically the end of last season. So that is where we're going to start today. And I'm going to start, of course, with the one that's probably the most interesting and the one that was definitely the most polarizing, you could say, for the Bills within training camp today. And that, of course, is the interview from Cole Beasley. Now, Cole Beasley, as we are well aware of, I don't need to spell it out for you, he has been a topic of conversation as of late within the media because of his stance on the coronavirus vaccine. And the reason he has been a topic of conversation is because he's been the most outspoken NFL player, perhaps, I would argue he has been, about the coronavirus vaccine. And what we found is that he took to Twitter to express his feelings. The problem with that, and the problem with social media in general, and we all know this, is that it lacks context. And that, of course, gets people in trouble all the time. Social media is not a very good place to go and have an argument, as we all know. Try going online and arguing about who's better, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. You're going to get 1,000 Ravens fans and 1,000 Bills fans not willing to change their mind. It's just like you're going to get 1,000 liberals and 1,000 Republicans arguing with each other. Neither side's going to change their mind. Not smart to go on there and do it. You're never going to win because both sides think they're right? And to each their own, of course. That's the point. But on social media, you hide behind an anonymous account or whatever, and you can do whatever you please. But when you are a person of a public figure status like Cole Beasley, who is outspoken about something that many people aren't, it is going to be a story. And that, of course, has been the story surrounding Cole Beasley as of late. Finally, we get to talk to him. And this is where we're able to put it into context. And the first thing and the main thing that I took away from training camp in its entirety today is that the best thing that we can do when it comes to situations like this is to use our actual words. Use our actual words, our body language, our expression, face-to-face conversation. Because these types of conversation, when they're done online, do nobody any favors, especially Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley has seemed like an enemy within the NFL atmosphere because of his stance on the coronavirus vaccine. But when you listen to him talk about it in person, it was a much different sentiment, wasn't it? He was a human. He was giving his personal opinion And I thought he explained himself in a very articulate and positive manner, a very respectful manner. He sits down at the presser and he addresses the media right off the bat because he knows. I mean, if he didn't say something off the bat, all he was going to do is sit down and get 1,000 questions about that. At the end of the day, him and the rest of the locker room don't care. They really don't care. We'll get into that more as we go on because everybody, for the most part, was asked about it. At the end of the day, these guys don't care. It's not affecting the locker room, and I said that last week. The reason I had a problem with it is because Cole Beasley was taken to social media to address his arguments and to argue with others, including teammates like Jerry Hughes, when all these things can be done either in person or off of social media where millions of people are able to see it and create their own narrative. But when you do it in a presser situation like Cole Beasley did today, it's a much different tone. And if he would have addressed his thoughts in this way from the beginning, I don't think there would have been much of a story there. The reason there was a story is because it was done on Twitter. And we know that anything done on Twitter can be blown vastly out of proportion. It happens on a daily basis. So Cole Beasley sits down at the presser, and I was very happy with what we got from Cole Beasley today. I was very pleased because the way he's been going about it on Twitter, he's very passionate about his thoughts on this particular topic. I thought that might have poured out in this presser. But he was very rational. He was very kind to the media. He was very respectful. And all he did was go out and give his opinion, which we're all entitled to. And essentially what he comes out and says is, I'm not anti or pro-vax. Now, of course, on Twitter, the way he was talking, the narrative was Cole Beasley is anti-vaccine. Cole Beasley is pro-choice. That was his words. And Cole Beasley, during this presser, essentially lists out every single reason as to why he feels the way he does. And it was refreshing to hear his reasoning in person in a very sentimental tone. He read it in a way that I thought was well done in the situation that he is currently in, because he knew that that was going to be the main topic surrounding him being interviewed by the media. He listed out various reasons as to why he stands the way he stands on the vaccine. He said he's concerned about future decisions within his health that can be determined by the NFL. I completely understood this stance. Whether you're pro or anti-vaccine, what we're seeing within the NFL is they're creating these incentives to make players get it, while at the same time saying, essentially in air quotes, it's not mandatory. But we can all tell basically at this stage in the game, the NFL is making the vaccine mandatory. It's just not being written in stone. There's incentives to get the vaccine, and you're basically being ostracized within the NFL community if you don't. And what Cole Beasley is essentially saying is this just the beginning of more circumstances like this, where we're going to be forced to do things that we don't want to do. And from his perspective, I thought he laid that out well, and that was his explanation. He said young players have been reaching out saying they'll get cut if they don't get vaxxed. This is true. And I don't think a lot of people talk about this, but imagine you're a young NFL player and you share the same opinion that Cole Beasley does. And listen, those of you listening to me, there are plenty of people on both sides. We all know this. I don't need to spell it out for you. There are plenty of people on the pro-vax, plenty of people on the anti-vax or the pro-choice or pro, doing whatever's best for everybody else. There's a million different ways to go about it. What I'm saying is there are definitely a large sum of players who share the same opinion as Cole Beasley. And he had said a lot of young players in particular have reached out to him in fear of losing their ability to play in the NFL over not getting the vaccine. Now, this to me definitely seems like it could be a real issue. If you're a young player who does not want to get vaccinated, at this moment in time within the NFL, a team is much more likely to keep a player who's vaccinated because it's less of a problem. There's no need to worry about the unvaccinated player. There's no reason to have to figure out a replacement for that player should he get COVID, because the protocols are so much different for players who are vaccinated and who aren't. There's a litany of different reasonings. But at the end of the day, if you're on the chopping block and it's coming down to you and another guy, odds are right now the NFL is going to lean towards keeping the guy who's vaccinated. And that to me is what Cole Beasley was saying when he was saying that around the topic of saying that, we're being forced to do things that aren't necessarily being written in stone, aren't being written in these guidelines. Some of these players might get cut over not getting the vaccine, even though it's not mandatory. But at the end of the day, could that potentially be the reason they got cut? Perhaps. And then you could be dealing with litigation and lawsuits over players suing over wrongful discharge from their job. You don't know. I mean, there's just a million different ways that this could go down, right? But that is definitely a concern for plenty of players, especially young players who have yet to establish themselves in the league. A guy like Cole Beasley can go out and say what he wants about the vaccine because he's not going anywhere. There were a lot of people who are like, just cut Cole Beasley. I told you this last week. It utter certainty, and I'll say it again. Cole Beasley not getting cut. Not happening. And it would be an utterly foolish move to even consider cutting Cole Beasley over his stance on the vaccine. Utterly foolish. But he has earned that right. He's the best slot wide receiver in the NFL. And the Bills are certainly not the same team without him. That can't be said for a wide margin of players in the NFL who have yet to reach the caliber of Cole Beasley. They don't have the ability to choose what they want to do or what they want to say without repercussions. If Josh Allen came out and was anti or not was pro-choice, as Cole Beasley said, if Josh Allen came out in the same light as Cole Beasley did, do you think anybody would be calling for Josh Allen to get cut? No. If you are a top-tier elite player in this league, you're not going anywhere, and you can say or do whatever you want. We just saw what Aaron Rodgers did for a whole offseason. Aaron Rodgers bitched and moaned all offseason about not being treated fairly, this and that. Who was at training camp today? Aaron Rodgers. They're not cutting Aaron Rodgers, right? I mean, that's just not happening. He's able to do those things. So is Cole Beasley. So Cole Beasley made a point in saying, I'm here to speak on behalf of those who don't have the ability to speak. And if he's telling the truth, which why wouldn't he be? I'll take his word for it. I believe him in him saying that there are got to be plenty of people reaching out to him who are in legitimate fear over losing their job. He wouldn't just say that. So I tip the cap for him going about it in that way where he feels that he has an obligation to speak out for those who can't. And I thought he articulated that well. He also would go on to say that player safety does not solely mean avoiding the coronavirus. In another way, that he's basically saying there could be complications from this or that, depending on what you put into your body. We have to consider these things. You got to remember, these are world-class athletes whose millions of dollars that currently reside in their bank account are dependent on their athletic ability and their body. And these guys are going to be hard-pressed to put anything in their body that they don't feel fully comfortable with. And clearly, Cole Beasley does not feel fully comfortable with the vaccine. Clearly, according to him, there are plenty of other players who share the exact same sentiment. What I liked about the way he went about it and the way the media went about it is that he came out, he gave this speech, which he clearly wrote on his phone, which I liked because he compiled his thoughts. I think he ticked every box for the most part. And the media really left it alone. The media didn't really pry at him. The only real questions that he got back in return about the subject was his conversation with Jerry Hughes on social media. Now, you guys know my stance on this, and this was my issue with the Cole Beasley problem in the first place. My issue wasn't Cole Beasley's stance on the vaccine, because as I've told you guys here multiple times, I am not in any position to tell somebody what to do, nor is anybody else. It is their opinion, and you're not going to change their opinion. Just like going online and arguing with somebody on Twitter. You're not changing their opinion. So why get involved when it's not necessary? The problem that I had with it is he's having these conversations in public, online, where anybody can take them out of context in a completely different direction. And to me, I didn't think it would cause a distraction in the locker room, which it clearly hasn't. And Josh Allen addressed that. I'll get to that in a minute in Josh Allen's presser. It has not affected the locker room. It won't affect the locker room. But what it did is it created a dark cloud over the Bills within the NFL media. And as a fan, I don't like that. And that could have easily have been avoided had Cole Beasley not gone on Twitter and ranted the way he did several different times. But I think today was a huge sigh of relief as a Bills fan to be able to watch him put his thoughts into actual words, use his body language, and put his thoughts into the atmosphere in a way that we can take in as humans instead of these robotic aliases that we have online. So my main issue was Cole Beasley and the way he went about it on Twitter. I thought he did a good job of rectifying that today. And I think the lesson learned here is that if you have a problem in which is causing a news story surrounding your team or you in particular as a player, you should say something, because oftentimes it can help put it to rest and it can really put things into context. I'll go on a little bit of a tangent here on Aaron Rodgers because I think it's very similar. All offseason, Aaron Rodgers did not say a single word to anybody in the media about what exactly it was in regard to his problem with the Green Bay Packers. It was up for us to figure it out. And it's his words. It's a beautiful mystery as to what his future was with the Green Bay Packers. He doesn't say anything. Yet today, he shows up for camp and he tells the entire story with a detailed timeline as to what brought him to frustration with the Green Bay Packers organization. Why could Aaron Rodgers have not done that from the get-go and put everything straight? Because I thought everything that Aaron Rodgers had to say in his press conference today was very, very reasonable. And there were a lot of people who thought Aaron Rodgers was a villain for the last 3 months. From what I heard from him today, I didn't get that vibe at all. But the reason we get that vibe is because people put out cryptic tweets or cryptic sayings, and we leave the media and us on social media to run away with it and put our own interpretation on it. And all that does is stir the pot. And believe me, we're sports fans. We love stirring the pot every now and then. But how long can you let it go on for? And in Aaron Rodgers' case, he let it go on for months. And I thought today, in one 10-minute presser, he did more for himself and the fan base of Green Bay than he had done in the last 3 months. He finally came out and storylined the entire issue that he has had with the Green Bay Packers over the last year. And I thought it was very reasonable. Why could he not have done that sooner? Why did it have to wait until today? That to me doesn't make any sense. So to close out on the Cole Beasley thing, I thought it was great that after he had said his piece on that, the first question asked to him was about Emmanuel Sanders. And of course, Cole Beasley was Emmanuel Sanders' teammate in college. I really respected the fact that the media let it be. Because as we know, the media, what are they there for? They're there for? They're there for stories. I'm a broadcasting major. I completely understand what goes on in these circumstances because that's what media is, man. You got to get the story. And Cole Beasley and the vaccine was the story. But they allowed him to say his piece and backed off. And I thought that was a really great move by the entirety of the Bills media that was in attendance. What they did ask, though, and back to what I was saying, they asked about the Jerry Hughes issue. And what I loved was Beasley's response. I really loved it. He had said that brothers have debates. Not everyone agrees on everything. Doesn't mean you don't like somebody or have to hate them. And I thought that was the best thing he said throughout his entire presser. Because what we have done as a society, and it's true, is we have created this narrative that if you disagree with somebody, you can't associate yourself with them. And most time, if you disagree with somebody, you have to hate them. We saw that a lot throughout the political atmosphere over the last few years. At the end of the day, plenty of people disagree with plenty of other people. It does not mean you have to dislike anybody because of their beliefs. And what Cole Beasley said is, I had a call with Jerry Hughes after the skirmish on Twitter. They talked it out, and it was fine. And he said he'd run through a wall for Jerry Hughes. And I wouldn't have questioned that regardless. Did I think it needed to be done on Twitter? Absolutely not. And I think Cole Beasley knew that too. And I think that's why he answered the question the way he did. But the lesson learned here, I think, is that we as fans have to avoid the noise surrounding circumstances like this because 9.9 out of 10 times it's complete BS. And we've heard all the different storylines that could possibly be drummed up to create an issue within the Buffalo Bills, right? It was when Stefon Diggs was coming to Buffalo. Oh, he's going to be a cancer in the locker room. Or on the flip side, he wasn't going to be able to produce because Josh Allen isn't a good enough quarterback, this, that, and the other thing, right? I mean, that's just one example of 1,000. You could think of a bunch, right? But at the end of the day, when you finally get clarification, what does it wind up being most of the time? A whole lot of nothing. A whole lot of nothing. And thank God training camp is back. And I've been saying this for weeks. We've needed this because over the last few months, all we can do is talk about this BS that we see online because there's no football. But finally, there is football back, and the Bills open up with training camp today and those pressers. Cole Beasley closed out his presser, and I think what he had said about getting to the AFC Championship really resonated with me and all Bills fans. He was asked about what it was like to make the AFC Championship and getting that close, and it stuck with me because Stefon Diggs and the rest of the players asked. They basically answered with the status quo, and it was, we got there, but we didn't get the job done. And of course, that's true. I mean, they didn't get the job done. And were we happy about it? Absolutely not. But at the end of the day, man, Buffalo Bills made the AFC Championship last year. And being a Bills fan for the last 2 decades, we would have given our left toe to have gotten into that game over every single one of those years. And Cole Beasley said, this is the closest I've ever been to getting to a Super Bowl. And the way he answered that just seemed like there was definitely something within him where he was willing to admit, man, last year was great and we should be proud of it. And I think all those guys realize that and they are proud of it, but they're not going to put that into words. I thought the way Cole Beasley answered it by saying, this is the closest I've ever been to getting to a Super Bowl. I sat back and thought to myself, yeah, this is the closest I've been as a fan to getting to a Super Bowl. And that's exactly how I feel. Job isn't done. No. Am I pleased about how the year ended last year? No. Do I want it to end differently this year and win the Super Bowl? Of course. But it still felt good to get that close. And that was kind of the vibe I got from Cole Beasley when it came to that question. Let's talk about Josh Allen, because Josh Allen was, I thought, out of all the players today, thrown to the wolves the most when it came to the media. And that's going to happen. He's the leader, and he's going to get the most pressing questions. And, of course, the first question right out of the gate was, what's your stance on the vaccine? And I thought the entirety of the presser, not the entirety, but the first half of it was kind of aimed to get Allen to say something that was worthy of a headline, right? And here's what I love the most about Josh Allen. He's never going to give you that. Yes, it might be boring. And as he said, yes, it's mundane. That is how I want my quarterback to be. I don't want my quarterback making headlines unless he's winning the MVP, unless he's winning the Super Bowl, fill in the blank. What I don't want is a headline that came from a press conference. And Josh Allen, he's never going to give you that. And that is what you want from your leader. Now, he was asked plenty of pressing questions, and I thought he answered them all absolutely terrifically. So let's get into it here. Josh Allen was initially asked about the COVID questions, and basically his answer to it was, I'm just here to win. Yeah, I'm just here to win. And the vibe I got from Josh Allen as he was answering these questions was, it was almost like he wanted to say, guys, in the most polite way possible, nobody cares about what you think we care about. Nobody cares about Cole Beasley and his stance on the vaccine. Nobody cares about anybody's personal choices outside of the locker room. What we care about as a team is winning. And what we care about as a team is doing everything in our power to pursue a championship. And that is the vibe I got from him. And down the line throughout the presser, that's basically what he said, was it not? Josh Allen says, quote, I'm just trying to be the best quarterback from this team, when asked about signing a contract before the season. Now, that's a fair question. Sal Capaccio asked him. And I thought it was, a question that needed to be asked. But the answer is absolutely terrific. Josh Allen was essentially asked that same question right after Sal Capaccio asked it, and he laughed. And he just said, I'm just trying to be the best quarterback for this football team. And he laughed because it was just like, listen, I'm not gonna give you that I need to get paid type thing. He's not gonna give you that. What he gave us instead was, we're here to win a Super Bowl. I can't focus on these things and be the best player I can be on the field. So I'm focused strictly on football. Imagine you have multiple tens of millions of dollars on the line, and your answer back to being asked as to when you're going to get that money is, I'm just focused on football. Tell you what, you're not going to get that from everybody. And I think, we should not take that for granted. The way he handles himself at the podium is as good as it gets in sports. And you got to remember, he's still only going in to his 4th year. And he handles himself at the pressers better than anybody. He does not give you those sound bites that everybody's so desperately looking for. And the poise and leadership that pours out of him when he's up there is just so obvious. And every question that he was basically asked all came down to one primary focus, and that's winning. Every answer he had for the most part came down to him saying that they're going to do whatever it takes to win. And of course, that is the ultimate goal. And that, without a doubt, is Josh Allen's ultimate goal. Loved when he was asked, I forget the exact question, but it was, essentially, what do you have to do to keep up with what you did last year? Because it was so outstanding, of course. And how can you top it? And is that something that weighs on your mind? And Josh Allen says, whether I'm throwing 4 touchdowns a game or throwing 4 passes in a game, I'm going to do whatever it takes to help this team win. I mean, yeah, is it the status quo politically correct answer? Yes. Do I love it? Absolutely. Because it's the right answer. It's the best answer. And truth be told, I think if Allen did only throw 4 passes in a game, if that was the game plan and they won, you think he'd care? You think he'd care that he only threw 4 passes for 20 yards? No. And that's what I love about him. And it pours out of him. The truthfulness within saying these things, I think, is obvious within Allen. Maybe when you see it with others, when they say it, you're kind of like, come on. With Allen, I have no reason to believe that that's not 100% accurate. Allen was also asked about spending time with Jordan Palmer this summer in Southern Cal. He said he was out there for a month. And what really made my eyebrows stand up is Allen said, figured out some more things. Listen, Allen's already got a deep bag of tricks. And if he's finding more things within that bag for us to see this season, I am more stoked than I already thought I was. He said, I got when you have goals in your mind, you go out and try to accomplish them. And he said by the time he left there with Jordan Palmer, he felt very confident on what he worked on, and he's stoked to be back putting it on the field with the team. I can only imagine what that might be. All I know is I'm incredibly excited to see it. All in all, though, when you're looking for a leader of a program, you're not going to find it. You're not going to find better than what we're seeing from Josh Allen. You're simply not. And even in, is it the most pressing and controversial topic, the COVID vaccine? No, but it's still a question where Allen could slip up and say something that could be completely blown out of context. And we actually saw that with Allen by accident when he was on Kyle Brandt's podcast. Remember that a few months back? He said he was still looking into the vaccine. Everybody made a whole thing out of that, right? Basically what he said, he said, like, I don't have a problem if you have it or you don't have it. We're all teammates. We're all here to win. And that's the correct answer. And as a leader, even if Allen was dead set on one side or the other, you have to be the middle ground within the locker room when you are the quarterback, especially when you are the quarterback who is the sole leader of the team. I mean, there's no question about it. Josh Allen is the cornerstone of the Buffalo Bills. And with that said, you have to act accordingly. And I thought in the presser today, Josh Allen did a really good job of doing that. Going to jump into Stefon Diggs' presser in just a second here. But before I do, have to let all you guys know, like I do each week, that this show is brought to you by Manscaped and the Lawnmower 4.0. You guys know I'm obsessed with the Lawnmower 4.0. I've been traveling, and I'm going to talk about that at the end of the show here to wrap things up, because I was finally able to get out into a concert over last weekend, and oh my God, being back around that many people was absolutely amazing. And all it had me thinking about was getting back to One Bills Drive. But I did bring my Lawnmower 4.0 with me with the travel lock, threw it in my bag, and I love having that thing with me and the ability to travel with it. It's absolutely awesome to be able to take it with me wherever I go. Also has that beautiful LED light, so you can take care of your business in the dark. That's my favorite feature, other than, of course, the wireless charging platform that comes with the Lawnmower 4.0. You're stepping into the future of men's grooming when you get the Lawnmower 4.0 in your bathroom on top of that awesome wireless charger. You can get yours today in your bathroom by heading over to manscaped.com. Use the promo code Fanatics to get a special discount on the Lawnmower 4.0 and all the products on manscaped.com. That's Fanatics in the promo code box to get a special discount over at manscaped.com. So Stefon Diggs sat down today for a presser looking cool as ever. I got to tell you, man, Stefon Diggs, there's so many cool guys on this team, like just cool. I think Deion Dawkins is like the coolest dude I've ever met personally from the team. I haven't met Stefon Diggs, but dude just radiates swag, man. He's just the coolest dude. And he's sitting down there with a San Francisco Giants hat. And I thought he had a couple hilarious answers to a couple of questions here. As we all know, the one radiating memory from the AFC Championship game last year was Stefon Diggs in his full uniform, staring over at the Chiefs as they celebrated winning the AFC Championship. And that picture, I believe, went on to win an award. Wish I knew the name of the photographer offhand. I know he definitely won an award for it. It was an amazing picture. And somebody brought the picture up to Stefon Diggs. And Stefon Diggs said, I'm not much of a billboard guy. He goes, I was there. I don't need a picture of it. Somebody asked him if he had that picture in his house. He goes, no, I'm not much of a billboard guy. He goes, I was there. I don't need a picture. I don't need a picture of it. I just thought that was hilarious. It couldn't have answered that better. Although it would be hilarious if he said he had it next to his mantle or something like that, which, waking up and seeing that every day, I see it enough on Twitter. It's like with the Cardinals and the Hail Mary or the Hail Murray. It's like, once you've seen it 1,000 times, does it really even hurt you anymore? It's just, it's sad at that point. We all know that. It's just sad that the Cardinals continue to tweet that video out. It's just, give me a break. That's the highlight of your season. Cheers. Congrats. So Stefon Diggs, right off the bat, he was asked about, what he's been doing in the offseason to get better. And he said he felt like he left a lot of hidden yards on the field. And I don't know. I just stood back like this when I heard that. I'm like, you mean to tell me you led the league in receiving yards and catches and you left stuff on the field? Kind of goes back to what Allen said, where he says, figured out some more things. It's like, man, could you just not be any more excited? Diggs has an all-time year. And his first response is, I think I left a lot on the field. I don't know what it could have possibly have been that he left. Couldn't have been much. I'd love to see him pick it back up, whatever it is, coming up in the coming season here. He says he tries not to think too much about last year, and that's, I think, the sentiment that a lot of these guys share. We'd be mistaken to think that it's not on their mind, of course. Getting all that way and not getting the job done has to weigh on you. But I think with this team, it just serves as motivation more than anything. I don't think it lingers around as a dark cloud. I think if anything, it's fuel. And that's kind of the vibe I got from Stefon Diggs in this presser. And he said, anybody who knows me knows I don't forget anything when it came to being asked about that Chiefs game. So he said he wasn't a billboard guy, but he also says he doesn't forget anything. So I thought that was a cool way to splice up the answer, where it's like, listen, I don't need that stuff to fuel me this year, but I didn't forget it either. And none of us did. And of course, that's gonna translate into the coming season here. And all I can say now, guys, is after getting today out of the way and seeing everybody at the presser on the field, and of course the videos come out of the team dancing, and it's just like, that's why you guys gotta love these guys so much. They just look like they're having a blast, and that's why I knew for a fact that the stuff with Beasley and whatever else, I just knew it wasn't going to be a problem in the locker room, because like I've told you guys a million times, this is a team that just truly seems like a gang of best friends, right? And you just see it. I've seen it in person, and every time I see something when it comes to these guys online, it just seems like it's there. Like it really, really does. And it's so cool to see it back, because you miss football so much when it's gone, and then you blink and it's like, oh my God, training camps today. There's the boys out there dancing. Stefon Diggs led the break or the huddle, which I thought was great. Everybody just seemed pumped to be there. And you got to love that, because this is a job. There are people in the NFL who aren't pumped to be at practice. These guys seem pumped to be at practice. They know what's on the horizon. I'd be pumped too if I were them, without question. The other big storyline coming out of training camp today, of course, was the fact that Deion Dawkins has or was in COVID protocol. Now, the problem with that is we don't know much about what that exactly means. Him and Ike Butker are on the COVID protocol as we speak, but we do not know if they're vaxxed or unvaxxed. Last I had checked, and from what I'm seeing, we also don't know when they contracted or came in close contact. So we should know over the next few days as to whether or not they'll be back on the field in regard to their vaccination status, because you can get back on the field faster if you have the vaccine. So I don't think that information is disclosed. And I'm also, from what I've seen, I don't necessarily know if they actually have COVID or they're just on the protocol or what exactly the deal is. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of info that came out. But in regard to that whole situation, Brandon Beane said that just over 80% of the entirety of the Bills team is vaccinated. One interesting tidbit was that Cole Beasley was the only player to wear a mask when doing his presser. I don't know if that necessarily means that Allen and Diggs and whoever else have it. I think that's a good inclination to think that they do. But obviously those exact players aren't disclosed. But as of right now, yes, Ike Butker and Deion Dawkins are in COVID-19 protocol, and we'll see over the next few days what winds up happening there. Let's go around the league here and talk about some other stories outside of Bills camp, because there are obviously a bunch. But I want to go back and touch on the Aaron Rodgers situation, just because I think it's just absolutely insane to see it all kind of come down to what it came down to. He had months of just fans and NFL NFL fans, even though we're not Packers fans, we follow the NFL in the news circle, of course, and everybody was engaged in on the Aaron Rodgers story. And for it to be as big as it was for so long, for him to just show up to camp and his compensation prize seemed to be re-signing Randall Cobb for way too much money. Who won here? It looks like the Packers definitely won here. And I from what I could hear from Aaron Rodgers, I think his issues were definitely, they were fairly expressed. I understood where he was coming from. It just seemed like in his presser, he really wanted a managerial role in addition to being the quarterback. I mean, he essentially said that he wanted to have a large say in the free agency process and whatever else. And look, I mean, I understand it when you're a guy of Aaron Rodgers' stature who's been with the team for that long and had that much success. Maybe you owe him the ability to help pick out free agents. Worked pretty well for Tom Brady, didn't it? And it just seems like he had asked for so many different things. It didn't seem to be a whole lot, and he never got any of them. And I think it compiled over time. And then with that, it led to this gigantic feud. But the odd thing to me is it was this massive feud that wound up coming down to essentially nothing. And based on the contract right now, Aaron Rodgers will be back in 2022. They voided the 23 contract. So he's essentially in the same place that he was in. And it just seemed like months of a gigantic catastrophe where no one knew what the hell was going on came down to a 10-minute presser where everything was completely cleared up. So it seemed. We finally got insight as to where Aaron Rodgers was coming from. And now we just kind of move on. So it's like, it's the same thing I was saying earlier about the Cole Beasley thing. I mean, even with Aaron Rodgers, this thing lasted months. And now all of a sudden, I just don't, how much of an issue is it going to be? I don't know. I mean, it'll still be a story. And I'm sure every week throughout the season, is this going to be your last year in Green Bay? Yeah, I'm sure he's going to get that. Right. But just found it incredibly interesting to watch everything unfold over the last several months for it to all come down to him just showing up to camp. And it just seems like nothing's really come of it. And just a very, very strange scenario. That whole thing was very, very odd. And Russell Wilson did the same thing. It was just that his issues with the Seahawks didn't seem to last as long. I mean, he had his issues with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks right after the Super Bowl. Those seem to get cleared up fairly quick. And we haven't heard about that issue at all ever since. Aaron Rodgers really dragged it out, but I think it's going to wind up coming down to the same thing that we saw it come down to with Russell Wilson, and it's just that it's going to get brushed under the rug until it winds up rearing its head again. Another interesting player in the NFL to show up to training camp, DeShaun Watson. DeShaun Watson shows up to training camp for the Houston Texans, and how weird must have that been or how weird could that have been for him? I mean, not only were you facing a laundry list of sexual allegation charges, but you were demanding out of Houston. And now you come back to Houston, not only with the demand to leave that you repeatedly made known throughout the offseason, you also carry a ton of legal baggage. And to this moment in time, nobody knows what's going to happen with DeShaun Watson whatsoever. And I keep hearing the possible trade to Miami and Philadelphia and this and that. I just thought it was incredibly eye-opening after all that has happened with him throughout the offseason. There he is back at training camp. And the reason for that, of course, is that if you don't show up to training camp, you lose $50,000 a day. I mean, could you imagine missing anything that would pay you $50,000 a day? I just couldn't help but think, wow, what's it got to be like for DeShaun Watson to walk back into that locker room? And how do his teammates feel about it? Because for one, his teammates know he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to be on that team. And two, his teammates don't know if he committed multiple sexual allegation acts or he committed multiple sexual assault acts that he currently is being alleged to have done all throughout the offseason here. It's an incredibly rich story that does not seem to have an end in sight currently. I don't know what is going to happen with DeShaun Watson. I'm very interested to see. I don't foresee him going to the Dolphins because I just don't think that's in the cards right now. Everybody keeps saying Philly. But what's Deshaun Watson's trade value right now with all that all the legal baggage hanging over him? I mean, imagine you take in Deshaun Watson and you have to deal with the fact that he winds up pleading guilty to all of these different charges and what happens there and how do you handle that as the team and can he even play? So seeing him back was definitely intriguing to say the least. And what will happen with him down the stretch here is going to be interesting to find out. This was a good one. Before I take off, I wanted to come in today and really just kind of tight-knitly wrap up what we heard at the press conference. Not much more to really go nuts about. I just thought it would be good to recap what we heard from these pressers because as I mentioned off the top of the show, this is the first time we've heard from a lot of these guys in person in quite some time. And it was just so refreshing to not only hear from these guys and get their perspective from the offseason, but to see them back on the field. It was great. But I can't tell you guys how amazing it's going to be back in that stadium this year. I went to a couple concerts over the weekend out in North Carolina, and they were sold out. I couldn't tell you how many thousands of people were there. And it brought me to tears. I got to be honest with you. And you guys are going to feel that 1,000,000% when you get back into the stadium. Just looking around, seeing that many people back together again, watching what they love. It was incredible. And it was the loudest concert I've ever been to in regard to the fans and them cheering. And all I could think about the whole time was I can't even imagine how loud it is going to be when the Bills take the field against the Steelers week 1. I can't even wrap my head around it. And not only just when they take the field, but when the third down horn plays and if they win, I mean, it's going to be unbelievable. And I think that even though we've all been there so many times and we've seen it, there's not going to be anything like getting back there again for the first time. And for me, I've been to like 80 concerts in my life. And this was like going to the first one I've ever been to ever. It was like just coming back to reality in a way that you almost forgot existed. And having that many people around cheering something on, I just couldn't help but think about the Bills the entire time. And all I can say to you guys is we're about, a month and a half from that and keep holding on because it's something to look forward to. I couldn't be more excited. And all I know is, man, it is going to be a sight to see and hear when we're all back at One Bills Drive. Gonna wrap it up on this one. 45 minutes in the books, and I appreciate you spending it with me on this Wednesday night. We'll be back at it again next week, of course. What am I playing here? Tweety Birds. I'm trying to play my Smoke Break song. There we go. Oh, I'm playing a little Tweety Birds heading out. 45 minutes in the books, like I said, and I can't thank you guys enough for spending it with me like you do each week. And we'll be back again next week for more training camp talk, and we'll see what else the Bills have in store for us over the next week. But keep this in mind, Bills fans. Football is back, baby, and it feels good. Stay safe. See you next Wednesday. Go Bills.